Good afternoon and welcome to the afternoon session of the November 28th, 2023 public hearing and public meeting of the Landmarks Preservation Commission. We are going to be resuming this afternoon with public hearing item number 3 on our agenda. And this meeting is being held via Zoom and live streamed on our YouTube channel if anyone would like to watch the proceedings remotely. And with that, I will turn it over to Corey Harala to take us through the afternoon agenda.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. Public hearing item number 3 is LPC 23-11565. This is an application for certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of the Bronx, block 5822, lot 2730, 4671 Grosvenor Avenue, also known as 4663 Grosvenor Avenue in the Fieldston Historic District. It's a vacant site featuring a fieldstone retaining wall, and the application is to construct a new building.
We can use the arrow keys to move back.
So if I to the next slide would be, where's the presentation?
Right.
Okay, and then I can move the presentation. No, left and right, up and down. Okay,
Up and down is working.
perfect. Up
We
and
can
down.
use the mouse to point
Okay,
and just state your name.
thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners, Chairperson Carol. Nice to see you again. My name is Hal Dorfman. I'm a local architect in Riverdale, and we've worked before together on houses in Fieldston and alterations in the Fieldston Historic District. We're here today seeking a certificate of appropriateness for a single-family dwelling on a vacant site on Grosvenor Avenue, as Corey stated. This site is approximately 70 feet frontage on Grosvenor Avenue. It's approximately 120 feet deep. It's also located in the natural area district. So the design is subject to trees, typography, rock outcroppings, steep slope. This project has been inspired, the design and its aesthetic, by the houses in the district that are of the craftsman style, which is also known as Foursquare or the bungalow style or cottage style. Some of the features of this house are that we have a lower sloped roof. We have patterned windows. We have a welcoming covered front open porch with stone base and exposed columns. We've tried to make the house compatible and appropriate with other houses on the block in terms of its siting and its size. We did studies on I might go on the wrong way, maybe the wrong way. We did studies on the block, and the houses on this particular montage show the two houses to the south and the one house to the north. All these houses have similar coverages on the ground. Some sites are a little smaller, some sites are a little larger, as the one is to the north. What we did is to keep the coziness and the friendliness of the craftsman style. We turned the house long ways on the site. Also, we were very limited in terms of the actual footprint area. So we have the smaller facade faces the street. These are some context photos showing the montage and some of the existing conditions with the existing stone. I believe it's like a Bronx schist stone wall. It's covered with ivy right now, but there is no cap on it. These are other houses in the district that we looked at that show for contents having a garage in the front facade. These are some other houses in the district. The ones I believe on the top and on the lower left are These are from the Historic District Report, these photographs, and these are considered inspired by the craftsman style. This is elevations of the house, showing it in context with the grade, the pattern windows, the different the two-tone paint style, the photovoltaics on the south roof. The footprint of the house and the roof plan and the floor plans. We can, if anyone has any questions, we can get back to that. This is the siding of the house. And as you can see, the area to the southeast has many trees. So we had to limit placing the house in the front yard. Normal front yards in the R12 district are 20 feet. The front yard in this house is 39 feet. We're required to have total yards of 20 feet, and we have a 12-foot yard because there were some rock outcroppings on this side that we had to avoid. This is considered a small steep slope portion, and this is also considered a small steep slope portion. And so both of these side yards are 50% greater than they have to be. We also worked with the staff at City Planning, and we included new trees, even though we did have enough tree credits and tree numbers. This site plan does not show hedges or small plantings that would be planted along the side of this south side retaining wall to identify it as a wall. This construction section shows the elements of the house. It's a 50-year multi-tab asphalt shingled roof with an overhang with copper gutters. It's textured siding. Again, copper gutters, exposed wood columns for the open porch, stone pillars on the lower part of the porch, and painted metal railing. This detail shows a composite of the colors. The garage door on the bottom is a cedar garage door. We have Anderson, I believe, E-Series windows. And you can see the color is, I think, what is the spice? The spice, I can't read the name on my glasses on Simeon. Cinnamon, yeah. It looks like that. It's I guess the color is slightly different than the name of the spice. And there's a lighter color to contrast it with the paint. There's a two-tone paint. And this is showing the contents of the building in the neighborhood and showing its appropriateness in terms of its size, its setback, its location to other homes in the district. And this last slide is just the detail of the stone wall that's existing and some of the other new houses that have been constructed since the district was created in approximately 2006. The three on the left are all my projects, and the other one is a former commissioner, Mr. Burns, on the right. So I'm open to any questions or any comments, or if you need clarification on anything, please don't hesitate to ask.
Okay, thank you. So commissioners, do we have any questions? So, and was this always a lot, or was this subdivided from another?
No, it was always
a lot.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So if there are no questions, maybe we'll move into public testimony and see if we have any testimony. And I'll note that there are no members of the public in the hearing room now, so I'll turn it to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. For any members of the public who would like to speak, please click the raise hand button now and I will call on you. Okay, I do not see any hands raised, so I will note for the record that Bronx Community Board 8 recommends denial. And I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carol.
Thank you. All right, so we did get that resolution from the community board. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit about the issues that were raised at the community board and what your thoughts and responses might be?
We have been working on this project for close to 16 months. We worked very strongly with Nate Heffron at City Planning. He's the staff person. And we also walked the site with City Planning prior to even starting the design. City Planning has been aware viscerally. They've seen the site. They did not rely on my word nor the surveyor's word where the trees were, where the rocks were. They also believe the coverage is appropriate because the houses all around it have the same coverage or equal or more coverage. So that's how I'm responding to the first whereas.
That's the community board resolution.
Yeah, yes, I'm reading from the second one was about the rock outcroppings, and I did address that. And we had a very limited footprint area where we could actually place the buildings, and we're leaving the rocks to the right in this rendering undisturbed that are along the northern property line. And then the other questions about notice, I'm not certain why, but we sent out all the letters as we were not required as applicants. It's supposed to be the community board. I think that changed in the last few years. I remember years ago as applicants, we were responsible. And we did also notify the Fieldston Property Owners Association, Mr. Schmidman, the president, as we would normally do. So they were all given opportunities to speak and,
Some of the community board issues had to do with notice, but otherwise maybe the rock outcropping sighting. Okay.
And we did answer all their questions and made a fairly thorough presentation. And there were very little comments actually on the SNAD requirements nor the aesthetics.
And just
One other quick question. You have on the front facade, these windows with horizontal muntins, right? Does that same window carry all the way through the building on all facades?
Yes, yes, I believe it does.
Okay. But it is primarily viewed from the street.
Yeah, it's really only the street facade is really it's heavily wooded all around, and it's not really visible from any other public thoroughfare except Grosvenor.
Okay, commissioners, any other final questions? Okay, let's move to close the hearing. Commissioner Master, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the hearing is closed, and this is for a new building on this site in this lot in the Fieldston Historic District, which also happens to be a special natural area district and is regulated by city planning. So the applicant talked about working with city planning on the siting, and I think that the siting is pretty set given their regulations. And we will talk about the height, massing, lot coverage, materials, and general composition and details, as well as we want to talk about the driveway and the retaining wall and how it's nestled within the site. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Holford Smith, would you like to start this one?
I think in general, the scale and the massing seem appropriate to me for the site. I understand the limitations of the SNAD requirements. It seems, just looking at the adjacent properties, that it seems to be a similar scale. And for the most part, a similar kind of vocabulary. A few things I'm curious about. The horizontal mullioned windows seem a little unusual. I was wondering I guess I could have asked the applicant what the inspiration for that was, but maybe something more multi-pane, I think might be more appropriate for what this is, sort of like a bungalow type house. And also a little curious, the two-tone siding, and looking at other adjacent houses, they seem to be a little simpler in their finishes, and maybe, sometimes you have the stone base and you may have a different color siding. Maybe you have a darker siding on the bottom and the second floor is a lighter siding. I think trying to frame the windows in the lighter siding is a little unusual kind of detail. I think that the overall configuration of the entry stairs and driveway are okay. I think introducing the coping is very odd. I think this kind of a fieldstone wall really doesn't want to have a coping on it. And if the issue is with not having it on an angle, maybe they could step the wall instead of having it slope. The relationship of the railing at the bottom to the sloped coping is very odd. They should be parallel, or again, they should think ideally that the stone would step, I think, and it'd be better relationship, because having the two angles together, that's very strange. I think that it's a little bit hard to tell from the details are not very well developed. So looking at the eave details and maybe some of the wood trim, they could work with staff on that. But I'd be curious to hear other comments. I think in general, with some finessing, it could be found to be appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
So when I looked at this building the first time, I thought it has a base, and then it has a middle, and it has a rooftop, a small one. And then they thought, essentially, it's a symmetrical volume. But then when I looked at it carefully, the windows were asymmetrical, but on the side, but they were almost they could have been symmetrical, but they were slightly off. There was some kind of play that I didn't understand why the windows didn't align. So I looked at the plan, and the rooms, the windows in the rooms don't align. So that's a conscious decision by the architect. And then I looked the detail of the retaining wall and the coping stone, and I love the stair. I think the stair is almost as long as the building itself, the house. But it's aesthetically, it's very odd, and so I can't comment on that. That's the architect's interpretation. I do think the rainwater leaders and the way they come down, the way they could be thought of slightly different, and the eaves and gutters, I don't. It's very thin. It doesn't have the same thickness that you usually see on gutters and on eaves. But it's a kind of the aesthetic of it is kind of a unique, idiosyncratic approach. But I can approach it. I can approve it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Master?
Yes, in terms of the height and the massing, I think it's appropriate. I think the garage door in the front is also appropriate. I'm going to agree with a lot of the comments that Commissioner Holford Smith said, and leave it at that.
Okay. Commissioner Chu?
Okay, I think I'm in agreement that the scale and the mass of the house is appropriate. It feels like it has a nice scale, and it seems to be fitting with the scale of the neighboring houses. I totally agree with the comment about the field stone and the stepping, as Commissioner and also Smith mentioned, because I think that's more of a traditional approach for craftsman houses, is stepping the coping up. I went to school at Berkeley, so I always think about the Green and Green Thorson house when I think of craftsman. And, you know, it is a style that's was prevalent in California. But the characteristics, and I'm saying this because you presented this as a craftsman styled house and a bungalow house. So the characteristics I'm familiar with or tend to think characterize that style is low pitched roofs, usually open gables do have a strong impact at an entry, which this one doesn't. I think that could help. Having that entry lower and more protruding, I think gives a little bit more focus, and the stair coming up feels like it welcomes you. I do wish you had been more generous with the stair because it has a great approach and you could have played left and right. I think you could create a wonderful approach up there that I don't know if that green to the left really does much for you. And I would say that overhanging eaves are another characteristic of having the roofs actually extend a little bit more, help accentuate the roof character of Craftsman House. The windows, I find a little odd that there's this white line between them, and I can't tell what that is. Often they're just a cluster of windows that are wood and they're joined and they're detailed well, as opposed to trying to introduce bits of, I guess, stucco or siding between the windows. So I guess my comments are just little things here and there that would help refine the design. When I look at it, the approach to the stone base of the columns at the porch feel a little strange. Generally, there's a strong attempt to try to express the weight of the stone at the base of the house, and the wood that sits on top is usually smaller. So the four pieces up there, it definitely done in a lot of craftsman styles, but I think there's something strange with the relationship of the stone to the upper portion, as well as at the garage to the siding above. It's too flush. It feels like there needs to be a little more articulation. Yeah, and have the handrail be more consistent, as mentioned previously, to stepping of the coping. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lutfi.
So I think my fellow commissioners have added a lot of really positive and constructive comments. So I'm just going to add one more finessing thing here. So I agree about the siding and the garage is fine. I do want to say I do feel that the windows need the horizontal muntins don't seem to work. It should be probably multi-paned. I think for me, this idea of refining and finessing would really help this home, which is set on a wonderful property. And I think so many of these recommendations would help. I would also recommend, when I look at some of the homes in the area, there's this understatement about the color of the facade. It's more of a single tone. And I think even the stones at the bottom can be more of a, maybe they're more of a gray that just sort of blends a little more. I think you want this to connect a little more organically together so that it's, of a piece and each piece works well together. They're kind of like, there's a little bit of a cacophony here that's I think detracting from what you're trying to accomplish.
Vice Chair Bland.
A lot of good comments so far, I think. It's a little strange to say, get that green book out and study what happens in Berkeley around this city. landmarks table, but I think you can do a lot worse. It's a wonderful book too. Somebody stole it from my own collection. I don't know who that is, but I miss it terribly. No, but I think the problem here is we're having trouble with it because it's not developed enough. We don't see enough yet. We don't see the eave detail really worked out. We don't see the window detail worked out. It seems like if you look at those green and many others, I mean, God knows we have plenty of wonderful arts and crafts style houses right here in the city. You don't have to go all the way to Berkeley, but I just think I think it's just underdeveloped at this point, and it could be more developed. And the stepping of the coping, I think, was a terrific idea that Anne had. So yeah, just more developed and study some precedents a little more closely.
And Commissioner Chen.
Yeah, just to echo along that line, there are many great comments. I just thought that the Anne has a great suggestion, and so does Stephen. And somebody used the word generous. I haven't driven through many of these narrow garages. I wish the garage door is slightly more generous because I know how many scrapes we're going to have in that area.
Yeah. All right, Commissioner Ginsburg.
I agree with many of the other comments. I could see approving this and working with staff, but I'm not sure there. My biggest comment that hasn't really been said is the mortar and the stone shouldn't be white. It should be a gray to make it look more solid. And when you look at pictures of the walls you have in the presentation, they're gray. And I think that would be a lot. And then the comments on the coping and the handrails, I think are very important. So in general, I think it's appropriate, but it needs some development.
Okay, great. Thank you all for your. Sorry, Commissioner Chapin, please go ahead.
Yeah. For me, the largest issue is actually the color, the bicolor. I think that having it either be the brown or the lighter color is just much more typical, not only of its neighbors, but also of the other craftsman examples, because you often see stone with a color, but you don't usually see two colors and the stone. And I also think that the remarks about, it may be also, it's the old, is the rendering really doing it justice, but the stone also pops out at you, and people are making suggestions about the mortar to try to, so just sort of bringing it down in terms of contrast, which would I think make an enormous improvement over its general presentation. I agree with Anne and others' remarks about the coping and the sort of odd angles and the stonework and the need to, address that. And I was also wondering about those stone pillars to the side. I think when you see other similar houses, usually if you have the stone pillars on the porch like that, there's stone at the sides or beneath it. It seems like they're hanging out there. So either don't have the stone there or continue the stone at the base a bit so that there's, as was said before, more weight to the bottom. But I think that's part of what makes it, that also kind of just jars a little. But I think overall the size, the sighting, the general approach, working with the staff on details to the house is fine. And I think, some more work needs to happen with the way the stonework and the stairs are working there, because in this rendering, at least, it appears very kind of odd. So that's it.
Okay, that's great. We appreciate that. Thank you so much. So I think that we won't take an action today. I think the commission as a whole has found that the presence of the building, its height, scale, massing, and its siting are all appropriate, and that doing something in the craftsman style is also appropriate, but that there are some aspects of it that I think you need to restudy or to further develop. And so those would be the color scheme, the fenestration pattern, and then the detailing on the railings, the coping on the stone wall, the mortar on the stone wall, maybe the proportions of some of the entry features to really, develop it further and really achieve the style that you're trying to go for. So I think these are refinements, and we'll have you back as soon as you're ready. Okay, thank you. And we'll move to the next item.
All right, the next item is public hearing item number 4, LPC 23-11282, application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 875, Lot 26, 80 Irving Place in the Gramercy Park Historic District. This is an Italianate-style townhouse built in 1853 to 54, and the application is to construct a rooftop addition and enlarge an opening.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Erin Ruley, Higgins, Quaysbarth and Partners. We're the preservation consultants for this project. Martin Sosa of Archeologica is the architect, and he's joining us via Zoom. I'm going to take us through the whole presentation, and then Martin and I are available for any questions you might have. So here we have 80 Irving Place on the right, 4-story Italianate row house, constructed in 1854 within the Gramercy Park Historic District. It's located on the northeast corner of Irving Place and East 19th Street. And the scope of work, as Corey mentioned, is a rooftop addition and modification to a second floor opening. That design for the second floor opening has been revised, and it now meets staff level rules. So we'll only be looking at the rooftop addition today. Here is the overall building. You can see it has two street facades. The narrow facade is on Irving Place, 2 bays wide, and then it extends quite into a depth into the block. And it has a rather irregular footprint. You can see that sort of setback 4-story section of the building with the garage at the ground floor. That was part of a conglomeration of late 19th and early 20th century alterations that built up to form what we see today. And then just looking at the roofscape a little bit, at the rooftop currently, there is an elaborate sort of system of pergolas and trellises. And let's see, I'm going to try to point here, or maybe not. Anyway, we see the pergola there at the top of the photo on the left is an elevator bulkhead, and then there's a stair bulkhead that it attaches to that. The elevator bulkhead will remain, but the stair bulkhead is going to go away, as is all of the pergola and trellis system that's up there currently. The trellis or lattice that's along the north wall, so that let me see if I can right there. That was constructed in violation, and so that's coming down. So as part of this project. And then the other view is just sort of flipping around, and you can see that setback 4-story section of the building. Just a few views of the rooftop itself. We see in the top view, we're looking east toward the existing elevator bulkhead and stair bulkhead. Top right is looking the other direction toward Irving Place, showing you that pergola and existing lattice at the north wall. And then 2 detailed views of the existing stair bulkhead. Again, the stair bulkhead is being removed, elevator bulkhead remains and gets incorporated into the new design. And the bottom right photo is really helpful in understanding. We have a deep cornice, and so between the cornice and the parapet that you can see in that lower right corner, that's about 3 feet. So that sort of impacts how we see the addition from the street level. Here is the proposal. It's a small brick addition, brick to sort of blend in. As you can see, there's a lot of brick in the background context. Around the perimeter of the addition is a brise soleil. This is an actual shade-giving structure, not ornament. And so this is about 6 inches in height and in blackened steel. And what that will do is filter direct light from above in the summer months, and then allow for low light to enter the addition in the winter months when it's has a low array. Just in plan, give you a sense of the existing and proposed conditions. We have the existing pergolas. You can see the existing elevator bulkhead and stair bulkhead. And then on that east wing of the roof, we have some mechanical that's getting replaced, as well as that pergola system that extends all the way back to the east. In the proposed condition, the footprint of the addition wraps around. You can see the stair bulkhead goes away, and the elevator bulkhead is incorporated into the interior of that addition. The addition is set back 28 feet from Irving Place, and it's about 7 feet back from East 19th Street, and that's not including that sort of deep parapet and cornice construction. There's some new mechanical and an enclosure going on the east wing, and that is all minimally visible. So here, just in elevation, again, the elevator bulkhead, the existing pergola and lattice that's being removed, and then that stair bulkhead, and then on the right, the proposed condition, the new addition with the elevator bulkhead remaining the same there, and then opening up that space between the chimney and the addition where the stair bulkhead exists today. Flipping around to East 19th Street, you can see all of those same conditions. We have that 6-foot high lattice that's going to come down, the pergola, and to the right here, we have stair bulkhead and elevator bulkhead, and then all of that pergola system on the east wing. And the proposed conditions. So the new lattice will be four feet in height above the parapet, the existing cornice height, and this matches the adjacent parapet wall. So the lattice only exists where there's a brick backup on the adjacent building, and then there we have the addition with the projecting brise-soleil and the elevator bulkhead to the right. And then there's that mechanical enclosure. East elevation, similar situation. We can see the proposed condition with the brise-soleil and the extension here. This is that proposed alteration at the second floor that we're taking care of at staff level. A few design elements. The brick, the facade will be clad in brick, and here's a sample here. It's a dark red Roman brick. The brise-soleil extends in front of the large glazed opening, only along the glazed opening and around the corner. That's in blackened steel. Again, it's 6 inches in height. It has a steel structural beam at the outside edge, and then thinner slats within. And then on the Irving Place facade, the west facade, you can see the brise-soleil wrapping around. Here, just looking at it in section. So we'll take a quick walk around to understand the visibility. We have on the left, the mock-up view, and on the right is a zoomed-in view rendered for the primary views. I think the important aspect here is that between the cornice and the chimneys, it creates this frontispiece for everything that sort of happens beyond that. So here we're seeing that leading edge of the brise-soleil against the background building, and we would see that popping up in the detail view as well, but very limited visibility. Similarly, when we walk to the east side of Irving Place, looking up through the brise-soleil here, so not unlike what you would see if it were a pergola on the rooftop. And again, normalized view is on the left and the zoomed-in view on the right. Going down the street to East 18th Street, the southwest corner of East 18th, we're about 200 feet away, and we can see what that looks like in the overall view. And here we get a little view of the some of the brick facade of the addition and the brise-soleil, but again, it's all in this very busy backdrop of a roofscape of Gramercy Park. on East 19th Street, looking from the east toward the building, where the building jogs out, where that sort of the crook of the later extension of the building. We're going to catch the back edge of the addition and the back edge of the Brise Soleil. And then from the west on 19th Street, so we're about mid-block, almost 300 feet away. This view is a little tricky because of the leaf cover. So they architects prepared a sightline diagram, which illustrates in this very small, you can't see it very well here, but it's catching the front edge of the Brise Soleil and the parapet of the brick wall. This, of course, the addition is again set back another 28 feet from the street wall. So it's going to, with confidence, it's going to blend in with that very active backdrop. And just a photo of the mock-up as it was constructed. And I think that's about it, if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Do we have questions, commissioners? Okay, I don't see any questions at this time, and so we'll move to public testimony, and I'll note that there are no members of the public in our hearing room, so I will turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a couple of remote participants. The first we'll be hearing from is Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. Erin let us know that the second floor opening has been revised, and so our testimony may not reflect that revision, but I will let you know what it is anyway. HDC finds the proposed masonry opening and door on the east facade of the second floor to be too large and too awkwardly located to be appropriate. A masonry opening and door that matches the width of the window that is directly east of the historic bay window and is centered on the east masonry facade would be a more pleasant and less visually intrusive solution. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We also do have John Graham listed as a speaker. John Graham, if you are with us and if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand now. Okay, I'm not seeing his hand raised. If somebody else from VSNY would like to provide testimony. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. So I will just note for the record that VSNY did. Oh, I see his hand is raised now. So John Graham, I'm promoting you to panelist now. And please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society in New York. We also had prepared comments concerning the doorway change, which Erin has just noted has been changed again. We will read them. First, we think the proposed rooftop changes are appropriate. Though somewhat visible from the street, the addition doesn't obscure any significant features, and we think will go essentially unnoticed. It could be made completely invisible by reducing or eliminating the Brise Soleil without reducing the occupiable space. However, the change to the doorway at the second floor is inappropriate. The existing door is barely visible. The enlarged one would be very visible and appears to crowd the lovely bay window immediately adjacent. It seemed odd to us that the illustrative description of this very visible and problematic change on a street facade was relegated to the appendix. We nearly missed it and mention it here to be sure the doorway graphics are viewed as part of the evaluation of the proposal. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I'm looking through the attendees list and I do not see any further hands raised. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 6 recommends approval. And I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to respond to the comments? I think for the rooftop addition, it's largely supportive, but
Right.
yeah.
So I think the with regard to the Brise Soleil, it really is a functional element of the addition, and it is from a performance perspective, the sort of bare minimum that it needs to be for wind and for the wind load. The architect could opine more, but I think it's in terms of trying to make it perform better. It seems like a minor bit of visibility similar to a pergola.
Okay, commissioners, do we have any final questions? Okay, let's close the hearing and begin our discussion. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you make a motion to close? Thank you. Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah.
Okay, so the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. And it's been noted, the proposed window opening is now being reviewed at staff level. So we're just looking at the removal of some rooftop features and then the construction of this setback penthouse and lattice and mechanical enclosure at the roof. And there are some sort of incidental views where you see it against the backdrop of taller buildings and in some cases from very long distances where you don't see actually most of the building on which it sits. So we'll have our discussion. Commissioner Lutfi, would you like to start this one?
Sure. So I think this project overall is very well done. It's very modest in size. They have set it back on all sides to minimize the visibility. I think the use of materials, the brick, I particularly like that thin brick, and the wood is compatible with not only the building but also with the surrounding area, and the visibility is very minimal. And at a distance, where you see more, it still seems as if it blends in within the surrounding area and other rooftop accretions. So I could support this.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Bland?
Yeah, not to repeat it all, I agree with it all. It's just evident and almost invisible, so it's appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Chen?
Likewise, yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Ginsburg?
Agree, appropriate.
Commissioner Goldblum?
Experience.
Okay, Commissioner Chapin?
I agree with Commissioner Lutfi.
Okay, any other thoughts in the interest of time? No? Okay, so I think we can go ahead and make a motion.
In the matter of docket 23-11282, 80 Irving Place, Gramercy Park Historic District, an Italianate style townhouse built in 1853 to 54. The application is to construct a rooftop addition and enlarge an opening. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Gramercy Park Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the proposed one-story rooftop addition is modest in scale and will set back from both the Irving Place and East 19th Street facades, maintaining a sense of the building's original massing. That only a small portion of the rooftop addition and the associated brise soleil will be minimally visible at oblique angles at a distance and will be seen in the context of other rooftop accretions. That the visible portion of the brise soleil with its open slats will recall traditional trellis work often seen on rooftops of buildings of this age and type. That the materials of the addition, including brick and wood, will relate well to the materials of the historic building, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural or historic character of the building or the historic district.
Thank you, Commissioner Chen. Would you second that motion?
Second.
All right. Mark. Vote.
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 11 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, that's approved. Thank you. And we'll move to the next item.
The next item is public hearing item number 5, LPC 24-02643. An application for certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 1185, lot 85, 320 West 77th Street in the West End Collegiate Historic District. This is an altered Renaissance revival style row house designed by Charles T. Mott and built in 1891 to 92. And the application is to replace windows, alter the entrance surround, install ironwork, and modify openings at the rear facade.
Hello. My name is Ralph Kowalczyk. I designed building, and I'm here with the owner, Dana. And I'd like to present to you the small modifications. I would like to say that we did work with stuff. Work with the LPC and on the staff level, and we got already went through a number of changes that were approved and appropriate, but there was 3 elements that we'd like to get your permission on and hopefully get this approved. This is the existing building facade as currently is. It's very institutional. It was designed originally as a Renaissance revival building, and it's in the West End Collegiate District. It's an existing map showing the location of the building within the district and historic photo representing the variety of the architectural styles within the district. These are 2 tax map photos showing buildings in 1940, which was quite decorative, as you can see, with the bay windows, a stoop, stairs, and 1980s photos that shown all the architectural features have been stripped of it. And substantial modifications were done to the facade. This is the progression of what we're proposing. On the left side is again existing site, existing building as it is currently. In the middle picture, it shows what was approved so far. And on the right-hand side, we're showing what we would like to change. It's a very small additions that we think that would improve the block appearance, the building, and would benefit the neighborhood in general. This is the streetscape of this 77th Street. As you can see, that we have the changes and not there's no additions. It's very minute. I'd like to move on to the AOA and work related to that location. So on the right-hand side, you can see our desired outcome of the changes. We'd like to change ironwork around the areaway, change the stone, replace it. At this point, it's cracked, it's damaged. Add molding or decorative trim around the doors, and change the doors themselves. And do introduce and replace the security guards at the windows. Same view, just drawn in flat elevation. And this is the close-up of the area. As you can see on the left side, in existing conditions is currently shown, and the right-hand side what we're proposing. The large details of the ironwork, I would like to point out, and I'm showing this further during the presentation, that the architectural features, shapes were taken within the district, within the same block in this historic district. So, and we just like to bring the same kind of design features to our building. This is the enlargement of the doors. Would like to replace the doors as well. The existing doors are older. Would like to have the larger light more to allow more daylight coming into the foyer. And a small touch to the molding around the door opening. I have an example of a picture showing the current conditions. And this is just to show the examples of architectural features that we were inspired by. I would like to introduce in the building. You can see quite elaborate moldings. The one on the right-hand side at 322 West 77th Street is pretty much what we'd like to do. Replicate this and have it done on our building as well. And then you can see all the ironwork within the same block, the same street, with circular elements and all the decorative elements that they've been used already on this block. These are front elevation windows. So the main difference was approved replacement of all the windows, which were in violation to begin with. And we already worked with James from LPC to go through this, but we would like to possibly add lights to the windows just to show that there is precedence for such divisions. We don't have to go necessarily 4x4, but we'd be open to have 6x6 or 8x8 as you see appropriate. This is just same historic photo and a building next door that shows modifications to the windows. It's right next to us, and the windows are divided by 4x4 with the transom windows, which is the modification has been done in history. And the last item is the rear facade. On the left side, as you can see, is the existing conditions as currently are. In the middle portion, it's what was approved already on the staff level. And the only difference is, and I would like to have done, is to create symmetry in the rear facade and enlarge the top window as shown. The same, just the graphical representation of what we're proposing. It shows you on the right-hand side the center window that would create some sort of symmetry within the space, within the room as well. And this is just to show you the context of the two closest surrounding buildings next to us, with what we're proposing and what's it's there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Lutfi.
What kind of windows are these? Are they
double hung windows?
Now, are they wood windows? Are they?
It's going to be wood windows, yes.
All wood. Okay.
All wood windows.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Yes, Commissioner Holford Smith.
I have a question for staff. What do we think the original configuration of these windows would have been on the front?
Hi, Commissioner James Russillo, Preservation Staff. The original configuration of these windows, you have to understand this is an altered condition. And so we can see from the tax photo that the entire block was at 1.1/1. But then when it was altered and the dormer at the attic was removed for the upper floor, there was multi-light casements instead of that upper floor.
Okay, so when the dormer was removed, at some point there were multi-light casements at the top floor.
Yes,
in that scene in that photo. Okay.
It's 318 next door.
Yes.
Sure. I'm sorry. So if you window in the store, the whole like there's 6 inches right there.
Yeah. Donna, just come up to the mic and yeah, just because we're on Zoom and they can't pick it up.
Donna Ullman, I'm the owner of this. And I was just saying that this is actually the tax photo and the existing photo of the neighbor next door, directly next door, 318, who has also submitted a letter in support. Their originals were the 1/1s. And then, as James said, the multi-lights were put in, but the same thing happened to 320. They put in the 1/1s and the multi-lights when everything was stripped. Everything on 320 was stripped before 1942.
Okay.
And
And
then
then,
turned into an apartment building. It was multifamily.
okay. And the other examples you showed of the multi-light windows on the street were on this particular block, right?
The first one, the 6/6 is 321, which we also have a letter of support, and she wants to testify, but Nancy Evans. That is directly across the street, and that is actually 6/6 on upper floors, and I believe 12/12 on the lower. I'm not exactly sure. You've got the picture though. There it is. That's 321, we're 320. And then these two are actually on 75th Street.
Oh, 75th. Okay.
What you have in the streetscape is the apartment building that is. Yeah, right there. That all has multi-lights. Of course, that's an apartment building. But this way you see other buildings down the street have multi-lights on the top floors as well.
Mhm.
So.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. All right. Other questions, commissioners? Okay, let's move to public testimony, and we may have more questions after that. And I'll note for the record that there are no members of the public in the hearing room, so I'll turn it to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a few hands raised in the Zoom meeting. First, we'll be hearing from Megan Fitzpatrick from Landmark West. Megan Fitzpatrick, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. Megan Fitzpatrick speaking on behalf of Landmark West. The Landmark West Certificate of Appropriateness Committee believes that if multi-light windows should be added to this building, even though they are not original, they should match the neighborhood and be 6/6 or 8/8. The proposed ironwork is overly decorative but not inappropriate. The proposed new door design is a mix of styles that is not appropriate to this building's Renaissance Revival design or this block. The Landmark West Certificate of Appropriateness Committee recommends approval with a caveat to rethink the proposed door and window design. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from John Graham from the Victorian Society of New York. John Graham, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society of New York. Regarding the window sash lights proposed, applicants usually seek fewer muntins and more clear glass in a renovation. This applicant is requesting 4/4 divisions in the window glass, while historically they were 1/1, as seen in the tax photo, which is typical for this building style. They would not have been 4/4. We recommend that window replacement respect the historic 1/1 configuration unless there is a compelling reason to introduce a new pattern. For the railings, we wonder what inspired the design of the proposed metalwork, which at 42 inches is taller than other railings in the area. The new railing should match the height of the previously approved design, which is similar to the height of the neighboring fences. The style proposed seems to be a cross between Art Deco and arts and crafts styles. This isn't necessarily inappropriate for this modified house, but there are examples of extant original railings in the surrounding blocks with 1890s motifs, which might be a better model for the proposed new railing. Finally, regarding the proposed facade modifications, the elaboration of the entry door surround is appropriate and typical for modified basement entrances, but it needs a better detailed keystone. For the rear window change, the previous approval for the window sashes included multi-pane glass. That pattern may unify the rear facade's appearance. However, the newly proposed expansion of the top floor's center masonry opening, apparently to create symmetry, is not defensible. Retaining the pattern of top floor windows would respect at least one historic aspect of the rear facade. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line, state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds many details of this proposal inappropriate. The applicant is reworking this historic facade, which has been destroyed by previous renovations, and has the opportunity to find a way for the new facade to relate to its neighbors, which were designed as a group, but the applicant has not done that here. For example, the building's original facade and those of its neighbors have a clear change in articulation between the 4th and 5th floor. The proposed lintels and head heights of the new facade do not align with the neighboring buildings, and the 3rd floor masonry opening modification is inappropriate. HDC notes that the applicant is attempting to add historicity to their building by adding 4/4 windows, but it appears that the present 1/1 configuration is historically appropriate. We ask that LPC require this applicant to work with staff to refine the proposal's compositional logic and material detailing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 7 recommends approval of the proposals relating to the areaway, cornice, front doorway surround, replacement of the front door and the modifications to the rear window, and denial of the use of 4/4 windows on the front facade as not reasonably appropriate to the character of the historic district. We also received letters of recommendation of approval from 3 other individuals. And I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
You. So I'd like to ask if you'd like to respond to the comments we've heard.
Thank you. I would just say a couple of things. First, the HDC, I think it's, I think their opposition is actually based on an inaccurate reading of the proposed changes. We're not reworking the historic facade. We're just repairing and restuccoing the front of it. So I'm not sure what they're talking about with respect to the new proposed lintels or head heights. Maybe it's in the rendering, but we're leaving everything the same as it is. The only thing that we're doing is restuccoing, and actually the coloration should be closer to whatever's next door. I mean, the problem is both those, the buildings on either side are actually dirty and not in great repair. So we're going to try and match it as best we can so that it does blend in more. And that might not be as accurately represented on there, but it's just redoing what's there. With respect to the ornamental grill work, again, the circles and the shape, it will be the same height as what's existing. I'm not sure why it looks taller, but we took those elements from other things on the block, which is what we were trying to show. The pane, the multi-light windows, to the point of most people are asking to put less panes on windows. The real reason we wanted to do that, or we'd like to do that, and whether it's 4/4, 6/6, or the split like what's next door, is just to make the building look less institutional and more residential, and provide some sort of decorative elements, because as we said before, everything was stripped off in 1942 and it's turned into a multifamily, and really an apartment building. So it's almost more like an apartment building, which is down the block. So, and we wanted to reflect historically across the street, as you saw. So either what's across the street or what's next door, but just making it look less institutional and cold. So that was the main thing.
Just an observation. I think the rendering maybe was a little inaccurate. If you're saying you're not reworking anything on the front, there's a big belt course at the top of the parlor level, and the existing photo shows there.
Down one more, right?
No, there.
So we're
But-
not. So
The
that's a problem with the rendering.
The rendering, right? I mean, to be absolutely clear.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
This is really up here.
Yes.
That
And also the bottom part, it's the rendering, so the existing condition at bottom.
Yeah.
And the rendering, the misalignment and wondering if you're changing color.
Yeah, Right.
No, sorry. Detail right now, we are not relooking at that, and so I apologize for the rendering. It is going to look pretty much exactly the same, except not with different colors and cracks and patches. It's going to be resurfaced. So, sorry if that was confusing.
All right. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Chu.
The only other element that I'm looking at is the sill of the windows on the existing facade. That is the sill the same? What is the material of the historic window sill? Brownstone?
No, we're not replacing those, but we're actually.
Okay, so that it won't look exactly like. Because are you doing a parging on the facade? How are you restoring the facade?
Stucco.
Right, so it's not brownstone sill. The sills will look a little different than the facade. Is that correct?
I know the answer to this.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, the current building, I think, has already been resurfaced and they're just
resurfacing it again.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The existing resurface.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Just as a quick reminder, the original building had a bow front. And so the current facade was from the mid 20th century.
Yeah, so it's been altered.
Right. So it historically had a bow front like the neighbor, and it of course had the very decorative dormer at the top as well, and a stoop. Okay. All right. Any other final questions, commissioners? All right, let's move to close the hearing. Commissioner Master, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Chu, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. And so there are sort of really three areas of work. One is the installation of the multi-light windows on the front facade. The second is at the areaway where we're looking at the new ironwork and the little bit of trim around the entry, which is typical of houses that have had their stoops removed. And we've historically saw a variety of surrounds around those basement doors used over time. And then at the rear, the modification of the combining of the window openings right above the rear extension, and then the enlarging of the top floor center window. And we'll begin our discussion about this. And I think, as we've all noted, this building is heavily altered. Historically, we know it had a stoop and a bow front and a very Renaissance revival dormer. It has since been stripped. It has a 20th century center portion of the facade, and lacks any detail now. And so I think, and the applicant has also shown that there are some other multi-light windows in buildings that were altered later in this historic district, including right across the street. So I think these are all things that you can think of as you think about this application. Vice Chair Bland, would you like to start?
Sure. Well, I think the key here is the level of restoration over time, which allows some latitude here. And the plainness of the facade, which the owner has emphasized, I would agree with. And that's a changed condition from the original. So regarding the windows, I think this rendering is very convincing that the multi-light adds to the residential character, if you will, but it just adds to the quality of the whole elevation. And part of that's because of the plainness of the facade. If it were much more elaborate, maybe it wouldn't be appropriate to do this, but I think it is very appropriate here. Regarding the whole ironwork and front stoop, I think it's generally in the right direction, but maybe just working with staff to get all the little details right, which I think is done at that level very well with our staff. And in the rear, I think normally we don't change that top level window. But, I'm hard pressed to think we're changing so many things down below. Does it really matter that we don't change that? It's off center and this is a way of centering it. So I can vote to approve that as well.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, I agree with the vice chair. I remember loss. I would love to see those original donuts on the top. Too bad they're gone. So by extension, that leads to the stripped down version of currently the plain facade. And given the testimony, I think what Vice Chair stated is one good reason why maybe multi-light will be appropriate. And I would like to hear the rest of the commissioner to see what they feel about the rear windows. But obviously, the handrail details is obviously the ironwork details is obviously best done with the staff level.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg.
Okay, I think the rear window is fine. I think the ironwork should be simplified and that can be done at staff level. And I think there's three solutions to the windows. One is keep them double hung, no divisions. Two is do 6/6. Or three is do something similar to the adjacent building with the casements, which is what I would prefer, not to say the others aren't appropriate, because it is inherently more energy efficient. So thank you.
So, but you were saying that the 4/4 wouldn't be inappropriate.
No, I think that would be appropriate.
So this 6/6 is
Or
the 1/1.
Or the casement.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Goldblum.
Okay, I think that, when I look at the 4/4s, they kind of remind me of postmodern kind of renovation in context with the very flattened quality of the molding. So in a funny way, I think it does go with what's there. And therefore I don't really see this as, a first step to a historic restoration of the facade. It's really a kind of sidestep to making a bad situation a little bit better. So I could approve it as is, although I would recommend that they do the 6/6. I think the door surround they should get rid of the keystone altogether. It just looks goofy. And I think the railing is fine as long as it is at the same height as the rest of the neighbors. I would suggest that they ask their contractor if it would cost them a whole lot more to bring those rustications across from the neighbors. It shouldn't be a pricey affair, and it would pay off a lot in terms of deinstitutionalizing the feel of the house and having it blend with its neighbors left and right. It'd be a very low cost thing. I think in terms of the back facade, the top floors should remain as is. They're the only historic piece of this poor house. And there is evidence of a row that have this kind of asymmetrical arrangement. So I would strongly urge that they be kept. The stuff that's happening below it is fine.
Commissioner Chapin.
So I think that the proposed windows are appropriate for the change condition that's here. I think that the areaway and the railings are okay. And the treatment of the entry. The back window, it is true that there is an off-center window situation going on there, on 2 or 3 other houses at least. But, it's not a complete row, so, and there's been a lot of alteration to this building, so I would be okay with them putting in this, widened window where we would sometimes allow a lower window, but so it's okay, I think, in this case.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Holford Smith.
I think a multi-light window is appropriate. I think the 4/4 is very odd, so I would vote for 6/6. I'm okay with the ironwork. I think they can work with staff to make sure that the details and the heights are all appropriate, as well as the surround of the door. And I think on the rear facade that they should keep the original 3 window openings on the top floor.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Yeah, replace windows, appropriate, 1/1 relates better to its neighbors.
Sorry.
Alter the entrance around, appropriate,
1/1 windows.
1/1. Yeah. Alter the entrance around, appropriate. Install ironwork, I think the interpretation is good, so appropriate. And the rear facade, of course, centering would be fine.
Sorry.
I'm for the window in the rear facade.
Okay. Commissioner Master.
Yes, I think that the multi-light windows are fine in the front. The surround and the railings, yeah, I think they're fine. They can work with staff to refine it. And then in the rear, I think opening the window to make it symmetrical, I'm fine with that as well.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chu.
I'm in agreement with my fellow commissioners. I think a multi-light window is acceptable. The revision is acceptable. The lower level ironwork, again, work with staff. I think it could be simplified a bit. The only comment I have about the lower facade work is, and I think Michael mentioned it, the neighboring house has a simple one. I think just get rid of the keystone. It's fussy looking.
Commissioner Lutfi.
So, okay, this is just like when you tally it up, where's it going to end up? So, yeah, exactly. So I happen to agree. I really appreciate what the applicant's trying to do here. It does look, the building has been stripped and it does look a little institutional. So I'm very sympathetic, but I think you haven't gone far enough with the 4/4. I think it should be 6/6. And I absolutely think that Commissioner Goldblum's idea of bringing the rustication across will only help you. And so I think it's definitely worth investigating. I like the ironwork because I think it also adds to what you're trying to accomplish, but it does seem like the fence should be the same height as the neighboring fence. I'm okay with the surround as is or slightly modified if that's winning in the tally. And on the back, I would say that they should actually be, even if you make an adjustment in the making the windows more symmetrical at the top, I would do those 1/1.
Okay, but you're fine with the openings.
Yeah, I'm fine with the openings.
Okay, so this was an interesting discussion. But I did keep tally. And I think where we are is we actually have enough to support all of the components as presented. Although there is a strong preference for the 6/6 as well. And so I'd ask you if that's something that you'd be interested in doing, although we do have enough for the 4/4. Okay. Okay. All right. So we can, approve it as a 4/4 or to explore the 6/6. And I think we have enough to approve the ironwork as presented, although working on the details with the staff, continuing to develop the details with staff. And we have enough to support the rear facade changes. Are you comfortable with adjusting these?
You'll see.
Okay.
You'll be the determiner. In the matter of 320 West 77th Street in the West End Collegiate Historic District. This is an application to replace windows, alter the entrance surround, install ironwork, and modify openings at the rear facade. I note that the building style, scale, material, and details are among the features that contribute to the architectural and historic character of the West End Collegiate Historic District. I recommend approval, noting that the proposed damage or significant architectural features, that the existing ironwork be removed is not historic, and the replacement of concrete paving with bluestone pavers will be typical of everyways in the streetscape. That the proposed profiled entrance surround and glazed door with ironwork is in keeping with entrances found at altered row houses elsewhere in the district. That the proposed ironwork at the basement windows door is a modern design interpretation of the surrounding historic ironwork and will harmonize with the period facade of the existing row house. That the proposed work at the rear facade and rear yard will be visible from any public thoroughfare, and that widening the central window to symmetrically balance the windows at the top floor of the facade will not diminish the unity of the room.
Recommend that they work with this.
Yeah, and recommend that you work closely with our staff, particularly on the details in the front area way.
And you can also explore the 6/6 if you wish to. All right, Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Delighted to second.
Thank you. Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum.
No.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 10 in favor and 1 opposed, the motion passes.
Right, that's approved. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks.
All right, we'll now move to the next item. Public hearing item number 6, LPC 24-03689. This is an application for an advisory report. The Borough of Manhattan, Block 1897, Lot 1. Riverside Park, the Dinosaur Playground, part of the scenic landmark. This is a playground and pathways built in the 1930s within an English romantic style park built in 1873 to 1875 and designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, with modifications and additions built in 1934 to 37 and designed by Clifton Lloyd and Gilmore Clark. The application is to remove stairs, install ramps, replace walls, fencing, and guardrails, and regrade the site.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Margaret Bracken, Parks Department Capital for Riverside Park. We're here today to present the reconstruction of Dinosaur Playground, which is located at West 97th Street in Riverside Park. Our available budget is $8.66 million, which is partly mayoral funds, partly city council funds. And we also have a FEMA grant to address a significant sinkhole in the northern end of the playground. Our goals with this project are to reconstruct and update the playground while respecting the historic integrity of the original design from 1935, its place within the larger Moses era reconstruction of Riverside Park, and also our designation as a scenic landmark. Other goals are to increase and diversify the play opportunities within the playground, to improve ADA access from Riverside Drive into the playground and within the playground, and to address our very significant drainage problems in the playground. Prior to and during the design phase of this project, we met extensively with the local community, two on-site input meetings, community input meeting via Zoom, and also the project was presented to the Parks and Environment Committee of Community Board 7, where it was unanimously approved with no dissent. The feedback that we received from the community informed the design, which Stephen Whitehouse, principal of Star Whitehouse, will now present for you.
Thank you. As Margaret said, I'm Stephen Whitehouse for the record. As Margaret said, the site is in Riverside Park, just inside the park, inside Riverside Drive at 97th Street. It is a major recreational feature in a long linear system of parks, Riverside Park defining the west side of Manhattan. And if we look on the left here to the Bealey map, our site actually sits with what was Stryker's Bay, which is where the drainage course from 96, 97th Street came down. It is now completely landlocked. Of note on the Bealey map, these sort of contours on the left-hand side essentially form the alignment of Riverside Drive, designed by Olmsted and Vaux. So if we look at the picture on the right here, which is a picture looking north, you can see the drive installed sort of at the crest of the hill. And the Riverside Park in that era is a very steep embankment down to the river. The picture on the left is part of that Riverside Drive construction. Of the elements in the foreground, only the bridge on the upper right now remains. Everything else in that picture no longer remains. This is part of the West Side improvements by Robert Moses that built the Henry Hudson Parkway, extended landfill out into the water, and built this playground. If you see the trees along Riverside Drive, they're a rough marker of the existing part of the park that was kept, and the playground nestled at the bottom of that. Zooming in, you can see there's a series of rectangular openings. That is a tunnel bridge under which the railroad runs, and it actually puts this playground into a bowl now, coming sloping down from Riverside Park and then sloping up again to the elevation of the railroad. This strong north-south axis, you can start to see the three terraces that define this. This is one of the sort of major architectonic recreational features within the Riverside Park ensemble. This is looking downtown with north on the left. We're going to switch point of view now as if we're standing on Riverside Drive, and where most of our drawings are oriented. So north is now on the right. You can see the basic form of this symmetry. The entrances in from Riverside Drive level down to the middle and down to the park. Three terraces. The upper terrace, which is the public restroom, is not in our project. The middle terrace and the lower terrace and all the park approaches are. And we have a sinkhole in the northern part of the park and no handicapped access between the intermediate levels of the park or down from the park itself. We also have significant drainage issues in addition to just issues of condition. Some views of the entrance. The first from the Riverside Drive sidewalk on the left down into the park. The second looking up from the middle terrace up towards Riverside Drive. The play equipment in the lower level, which was installed in a late 80s, early 90s reconstruction of the park. The sandboxes there are original. The dinosaur sculptures are part of the that restoration of the 90s. Some other features here, note the swing set, which now has to have fences around it, forms a barrier in the middle of the play area. And the sort of border of cobbles all around the trees are in fact not accessible either. So our entire playground is not accessible on the lower level. There's a large spray shower. This is about as intense as it gets, this picture that we have from the files, with a custom or unique to this park fence around it. And on the upper level, a parapet terrace that overlooks that with a 12-inch parapet rail over about a 6-foot drop. The vertical surfaces, the view on the left is that restroom, which is not part of our project. The vertical surfaces of that are the cut ashlar, which is found in various more ceremonial, fancier places in Riverside Park. The view on the right, the vertical surfaces of the area of the playground are a plain concrete covered with stucco, though they maintain a granite coping and some of the detailing that runs throughout this part of the project. And in the northern end of the park is a picture of the sinkholes, a fairly major collapse involving both tree roots and failure of pipes. We are undergoing a significant amount of testing and investigation right now to ascertain the exact cause of that. And the northern part of the playground has been shut off for several years because of it. This is where the FEMA funding comes into the project. And these are severe conditions of flooding within the park. I'm going to flip through these rather quickly. These are all large storms, but being at the bottom of the bowl, that's where the water goes. And if the pipes get clogged. I'm going to pause here just for a moment. The one on the left is actually a fairly chronic or typical flooding that we get with a cascade that comes down from Riverside Drive right into the entrance of the park. So that's not really, that's more chronic than extreme flooding that you see right there. So this is the existing condition again. I would say the main, very high level, the main assets of this are the strong architectural frame, the high quality detailing, this canopy of trees, which is spectacular, though it has to be de-emphasized in the rendering so you see what's happening underneath. And the fact that we don't have handicap access from the drive into the park, from the middle terrace to the lower terrace, to the play equipment, et cetera. We simply are not meeting modern codes with this plan. And a very high level here, we're going to drill into the comparisons, but we are showing changes to the area of the spray shower, modern moving of the swing sets to open up a more continuous flowing play area, increased permeability and planting, and stormwater management, I think are the main high level features that are happening in this plan. We'll zoom into it. We have two more to follow. We're going to break this into north and south, so I'm not going to linger too long over this one. But looking at the south end, changes number 1 and 3, we are increasing planted area around these very tightly paved trees, looking towards the long-term preservation. Numbers 2 and 4, modifying the central stair ensemble to make an accessible route between the middle terrace and the lower terrace that respects the symmetry of the center of the plan. And here are some renderings of that imposed, and I'll just say that the one on the left is actually the view from the north facing the water play. It's facing south there, so you're looking from above the area of the play equipment into the proposed water play area. It has removed a fence that now 100% bounds that area to allow free flow in all seasons. And the view on the right is from looking from the south, looking north. And you can see maintaining the symmetry across the central axis, which is also reinforced by the same rhythm of lighting, planting, et cetera, that's being preserved in this plan. To explain probably the largest structural change in this plan is this modification of making the central axis accessible. We have a stepped ramp coming down from the middle terrace to a lower terrace now. Making that an accessible ramp means you don't have as much of a pitch. You're not getting as far down, creates an intermediate landing, and then there's a sloped walkway. I'm not calling it a ramp because it's below 5%, a sloped walkway from that middle level following the curve around and basically in line with where the basin rim was of the spray shower area. Looking at the north end of it, some of the big moves, we are moving the swings from the dead center of this playground where it blocks all circulation, increasing the number of swings, including handicap swings, and moving them towards the perimeter so that we can use the perimeter fence as part of the required code isolation of those swing sets. We are opening up the plant and expanding the planting areas around all of the trees, introducing a rain garden into the northern corner. And those are the main features there. And there's a whole array of play equipment as well. We are indicating on the far right here, we are investigating retaining the existing or retaining or restoring or replacing the existing dinosaur sculptures and moving them to a feature position in the northern entrance of the park. The entrance from Riverside Drive into the park, we are proposing a ramp between the two staircases, the staircases for direct access by the able body, the ramps between, meeting accessibility. At the bottom of that, we are removing the two entrances now in the interest of managing stormwater and proposing a rain garden or an area there to absorb rainwater and help alleviate flooding within the playground from chronic conditions. And some views of that on the left from Riverside Drive south into the playground using the granite copings and bluestone landings and granite treads that are typical in this part of the park. And a view from below on the right, that's an asphalt pavement in the front, which is the primary pavement within the playground area. Some sectional views from the north-south axis. The existing is above, proposed below. You can see that in the middle of that, the sort of change in the elevation levels navigating between the middle terrace and the lower terrace. On the far left, you can see the increased planting around the existing trees. And a section east-west across the same, above the existing condition. Below, you can see the removal of the concrete curb spray shower basin into a more open plane that will slope to a drain, and the installation of a code compliant fence at the top of the parapet where there's currently a 12-inch steel rail. This is a rendering from above with the trees within the playground ghosted out, because quite honestly, you couldn't see the playground if they were not ghosted out. A zoom in from that. A view from below in the play equipment area, slightly off axis, looking north towards the Comfort Station building and showing the sort of continuous flow of spaces that this plan is creating between the play equipment area and the area now occupied by the fenced spray shower area. Some modifications of overall fencing. The current fence has a 7-foot chain link, current playground has a 7-foot chain link fence around it. We're dropping that to a 4-foot steel fence. As I've described, the removal of the 12-inch steel rail with the replacement of a parapet fence and the removal of most of the fencing around the existing spray shower area, and the addition of wicket fencing or plant protection fencing around some of the expanded planted areas. We are using the details typical throughout Riverside Park, World's Fair benches. I won't go through this whole list, but these are items that are typically found throughout the park. Pavements, we are using concrete, a colored concrete at the spray shower, some natural or plain concrete in other areas, asphalt block on the drive. And looking in a little bit more detail at the railing on the upper left is that 12-inch railing. We are basically removing the existing railing around the spray shower in the middle left and using it as the basis of design for a new railing, which will have round posts as it has to be used in both locations. Otherwise, we are keeping the stone, the Milford pink coping stones, the granite treads, the bluestone pavements, and the vertical texture of the concrete. We propose to use a stucco product in a standard white that is stocked by Riverside Park and will be able to be maintained without any look of patchiness over time. Again, it's a look at the overall plan. And I think this is where I stop and open it for questions.
Thank you very much. We have some questions. Commissioner Goldblum.
So looking at this plan, the pink represents safety surface. What is safety surface?
Safety surface in this case will be a rubberized tile designed to accept falls from certain heights without cranial injuries, to be precise, and is currently within the play equipment area.
Got it. And the gray kind of shape called out for water play, that's colored concrete?
It's a colored concrete, and there's a sort of lighter gray, which is a standard concrete that is the walkway around that and the handicap ramps.
Okay, thank you.
Right, other questions? Yes, Commissioner Master.
In terms of your flooding issues, I noticed that you have 2 rain gardens here. Do you expect that will take care of the flooding?
No. Yeah, well, they are a component. We have three components. The rain gardens are one component of this, a strategy of increasing permeability throughout the plan. The other thing is there'll be a fairly complete rebuild of the playground's drainage system that will be conveying water in a much more conventional fashion and more successfully than it does now.
Other questions? Okay, I don't see any other questions at this time, so we'll move to public testimony and then we'll come back to you. And checking the room, and I don't see any members of the public in the room, so I will turn it over to Gregory. Am I right? Did I miss somebody? Yeah, it's just Caroline. I'll turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a few hands raised in the meeting. The first person we'll be hearing from is Megan Fitzpatrick from Landmark West. Megan Fitzpatrick, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. Megan Fitzpatrick speaking on behalf of Landmark West. The Landmark West Certificate of Appropriateness Committee applauds this creative approach to redesigning the Dinosaur playground, especially the accessibility measures that have been proposed. Our committee would like to emphasize we are happy to see the original dinosaurs restored in the playground design. In terms of the site's landmark features, our committee understands the railing has to be raised for safety reasons, and we think it is a good idea to make the railing poles the same width and thickness as the existing holes in the parapet wall. Our committee would like a confirmation that the bluestone pavement and retaining walls are being replaced in kind. Although we are glad to see this playground receive some vital work, we are concerned that this proposed design does not sufficiently address the flooding that has consistently occurred at this playground in recent years. The Landmark West Certificate of Appropriateness Committee recommends approval. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from John Graham from the Victorian Society of New York. John Graham, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. So please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you. John, you are muted.
Sorry, Commissioners. Start over. Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society. Unlike the playgrounds inserted in earlier park designs, this playground is integral to the now historic Clark, Rapano, and Lloyd expanded Riverside Park design. For the most part, the current proposal maintains the integrity of the site's formal geometry and character, which have classical and Beaux-Arts precedents, fused with a modern, popular recreation purpose. There are, however, several details which should be rethought as they are at odds with the historic design and character of the site. Their problematic nature is described more fully in our written testimony. These details include introduction of undulating planting beds rather than maintaining their historic rectilinear form. Enlargement is fine, but the form is wrong. Significant increases in the amount and height of fencing. See slide 23 for the ill effects. This fencing should be reduced in height and extent where not strictly required. In addition, there is potential to further reduce the picket fencing by modifying the grades, the low walls which are being rebuilt, and the historic height rail fencing. Use of metal and wood World's Fair benches rather than the traditional and existing concrete and wood benches. The concrete and wood bench is original to this playground and the entire expanded park and should be used for historic authenticity and consistency. Replacing the original 9-foot tall park lampposts with the ill-proportioned 12-foot version shown in the drawings. The 9-foot posts, or a 10-foot alternate, should be used. Removal of most of the 7 iconic granite and bluestone step ramps, a characteristic of this park. It doesn't appear necessary to remove them all for access compliance. Other access solutions, if needed, should be explored. Removal of the 2 classical bird bath drinking fountains in the exedra-like semicircular paved niches in the mid-playground area. These fountains are becoming scarce and should remain. See photo in our written testimony. Any bench substitution should follow the arc of the pavement. If the commission decides to recommend these or other changes, we strongly urge that parks be asked to return with revised plans before a report is issued. Otherwise, there is no incentive for parks to make changes. And as we have seen in recent projects, both the Parks Department and the Public Design Commission have ignored LPC's recommendations with some very unfortunate results. The review process can, should, and once did work in a more useful way. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. And next up, we will be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. So please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC appreciates that the Parks Department is improving ADA access at this site and fixing what appears to be significant drainage issues. We are largely supportive of this project, but we feel that the proposed fencing is excessive and should be limited only to what is necessary to make the area safe. We also feel that the planting beds should be rectilinear rather than undulating so that they adhere more concretely to the geometry within the playground's perimeter. Finally, we know that the proposed World's Fair benches are not true to the period when this playground was built, and we believe that the existing benches should be replaced in kind. We agree with our colleagues at the Victorian Society that if the Commission decides to recommend changes to this application, it should also ask Parks to return with a revised proposal before issuing any advisory report so that Parks will have an incentive to heed LPC's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. And next up, we will be hearing from Jeremy Woodoff. Jeremy Woodoff, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Jeremy Woodoff speaking for the Art Deco Society of New York. Gilmore D. Clark, the chief landscape architect for Robert Moses Parks Administration, designed this playground as one of the showpieces of his ambitious extension of Riverside Park in the 1930s, where he created the grand Art Moderne city park that we know today. This special playground deserves a thoughtful renovation. When the playground first opened, it must have been a spectacular sight, nested into the hillside with a series of elegantly curving masonry stairs and ramps enclosing an oval pool with arctic jets of water. This playground was a daring attempt to create a children's play area and wading pool in the guise of a grand garden fountain. In fact, Clark based the playground design on the Fountain of the Dragons at Villa d'Este in Tivoli. Clark reinterpreted and streamlined the renowned Italian Renaissance hillside garden in modern idiom to create a unique landscape recreation area for city children. While we understand that current codes might preclude a wading pool of the magnitude of the original, we ask that the playground's historical symmetrical spray jets be modified and restored to again imbue the oval with a sense of a grand garden fountain. This site introduced a modern vocabulary of park design that unified the structures and landscape events throughout the linear park. The benches, railings, fencing, lampposts, bluestone paving, and masonry walls define the landscape character of Riverside Park. Many of these details subsequently became park standards that were used throughout New York City's modern New Deal era park system. These character-defining original details contribute greatly to the park's integrity and must be maintained. The Art Deco Society feels that many details could be improved to better support the historic integrity of Clark's original design while complying with accessibility and code standards. Our written testimony discusses these details and is in accord with the testimony you've already heard about the benches, lampposts, and fencing and planting beds. We want to make the LPC aware that the grand ornamental iron gate at the southern entrance to the playground is deteriorating. A stellar example of Art Deco ornamental detail, it's exactly the kind of park feature that our group advocates to be restored. It has been omitted from the scope of work, but should be properly conserved. To conclude, landscape historian Thomas Campanella of Cornell University has noted that Gilmore Clark's designs democratized an otherwise exclusive type of garden experience found in European villa gardens and more locally in the robber baron estates of Long Island. Clark's early work, quote, represents a fleeting moment of fusion between modernity and Beaux-Arts formalism. Clark took the Beaux-Arts to the people, effectively creating a vast civic estate that millions of Americans still enjoy.
I'm terribly sorry. If you could please conclude your statement.
Last sentence. Please join the Art Deco Society in requesting that the applicant refine and resubmit the proposed details of this unique playground to better uphold the integrity of Clark's pioneering vision for a grand modern children's play garden. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your statement. Okay. I do not see any further hands raised, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 7 recommends approval. And I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right, thank you very much. So I'd like to ask if you'd like to respond to the comments we've heard.
See if I can remember. This is live, yes. See if I can remember all. I will start with the question of stepped ramps. In fact, I will say stepped ramps occur. We have kept the stepped ramps between the middle terrace and the lower terrace on the northern side. We looked at both of those for the potential of making those handicapped and basically decided that we couldn't do that without doing considerable violence to the plan, and that the sort of central axis and the modification of the stepped ramps down to the spray shower offered the best opportunity for making this handicapped within the sort of symmetrical Beaux-Arts plan. Coming with the other stepped ramp that is modified are those coming down from Riverside Drive. And there is no, what we found, at least what drove our plan there was there's not enough space for, if you will, a straight line accessible ramp without running it well down into the park and chasing it downhill. And that the sort of crisscross through the stairs to have landings was the solution we ended on there. So that explains the attitude towards stepped ramps. Clarification, it is our intention to use a 9-foot B-pole in this plan and in the existing locations of the B-pole. So I don't, if there's something misrepresented there, we'll make sure it's clarified. As to the curving of the plant beds facing the play equipment, we were interested in maximizing the space available around the trees for them to grow. These are the original plantings of keeping away from the existing curbs while we did that, and also nestling benches in while maintaining mandated 6-foot safety zones from all of the vertical play equipment that each of which carries a safety zone. Would it be possible to straighten those interior spaces? Yes, it would. I would say the one piece that is not symmetrical and would be very hard to keep symmetrical is the placement of the swings because of the sort of offset zones that they require, particularly the one that's on the western side. But yes, that could be looked at. This was the solution that we came upon that we thought best kept that central space open and reinforced with the lights in their existing positions, the trees, etc. Still observe that central axis. The question of the fencing, that upper fence where the 12-inch rail is does not meet code. It was specifically, I don't know that any child has been maimed or killed falling there since it was built, but it was certainly an issue that came up in the public comment about people's feelings about having their children play there. And Then the challenge becomes, where do you make transitions from what has to be essentially a 32-inch fence by code down to a 12-inch rail, which seemed to get, we looked at it, and honestly, at least when we looked at it, all those transitions looked really wonky and called a lot of attention to themselves. I happen to like the big 12-inch rail. I like the way it looks. Could we make it work with, we tried to make it work with current code. There's a question about using the spacing of the bolt attachments of the upper, getting very technical now, of the upper railing when we use the new fence. The spacing between them is wider than a fence panel. It would need an you couldn't use those as endpoints of a panel. You would need to have infill between them. And also the gaps between them are rather long for the type of fence we're talking about putting in there, as opposed to the heavy 12-inch, the heavy probably 3-inch diameter pipe that's there right now. So we're not certain that the existing holes provide the most advantageous spacing for putting in the new fence. And there are details we're going to have to look with that. But we did certainly look at that. We thought about it. We sketched up double post fences and basically made an aesthetic decision that the single post fence was more successful. As to the question of the spray shower area, I appreciate the brass fittings and the sort of Versailles type fountain or Villa d'Este type fountain that was envisioned there. We would not be able to do that with city water regulations. It exceeds cities without putting a full recirculation system like a swimming and purification system like a swimming pool, because it exceeds the volume that city DEP will allow by about a factor of 4. So we are necessarily, at least in terms of keeping that part of our design consistent with current practices, dialing back the water volume. So that is why we looked towards a sort of reduced reduced spray shower area, but unbounded by fences. There are other comments. I think benches. The original bench there is the Christie Forsyth bench. We looked at a number of benches, and the Christie Forsyth bench does not come with an arm, which is generally accepted standards now. And in terms of a contemporary bench, admittedly not Gilmore Clark's original bench in this playground, a contemporary bench in the 1939 World's Fair was preferred in the design reviews at Parks. And that's why we proposed it.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg.
I presume confirm accessibility correct.
Other questions? Any other final questions? Okay, let's move to our discussion. Commissioner Holford Smith, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion on the changes to this dinosaur playground within Riverside Park, which is a scenic landmark and has been alluded to in the testimony. As such, we are advisory on this, and we will issue a report that would then go to the Public Design Commission, who has binding jurisdiction. And so this is a proposal to upgrade and adjust aspects of this playground in order to deal with drainage issues and to provide ADA accessibility and increase diversity of play. And so they've made a number of changes, and we'll go through those as we have our discussion. Commissioner Chapin, would you like to start this one?
Thank you, sir. So we had a very thorough presentation and response to comments, I think. this is a situation where they have very severe flooding and drainage issues, and access, as everyone knows, to a park like this with the elevations that are involved is a really important issue. And currently it just really isn't accessible. So I think that, we obviously really support the general proposal of what's being done. I think that opening up the center of the playground is a good thing, moving the swings to the side. I think that, the choices that have been made about ramping to me seem reasonable and appropriate. And I'm not really troubled by the fencing or the and you said there was some remark made, I think about paving also, what they are doing, replacing some of the granite and bluestone paving, in areas, not maybe universally, but, it's not being eliminated or anything. I think that in general, the proposal does what it seeks to do, which is to provide access and try to regrade and address some of the drainage, address hopefully the flooding and drainage issues, which they have to investigate obviously as well in other places to see if additional things need to be done. And I think, there's new play equipment planned, which is very attractive, which actually we didn't see on the presentation, but which I think will be a very good environment in the future. There's new plantings, which also are quite attractive. I think having more planted areas is a good thing. I don't think it really disrupts this historic sense of the axial arrangement of this area. And I think I can support it as presented.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Thanks. I think that they did a very thorough job in terms of trying to make the kind of improvements that are necessary to be made in order for it to address the environmental problems that they're having and bring it up to accessibility requirements. I do agree with the testimony on a number of instances, though. I think that the fun of this playground is the fact that it kind of plays against its type. It's a formal garden arrangement with a very stodgy, symmetrical Beaux-Arts design in which kids are messing around and playing and running around and having a good time. And I think that the efforts to kind of make it more frolicsome in plan take away from that quality, which makes this place a special place. So I agree with the testimony about trying to work within the rigid, formal Beaux-Arts symmetries of the original plan, whether that's the planting areas or the access ways. I think even, they could look at trying to make the play equipment work with that kind of more formal scheme. It's kind of, this is an unusual playground in that it is very formal in its architectural design. I don't think that the kids who use it feel like it's boring or unpleasant because of its symmetry, but I think that that's part of the intention of the design, and we should try to maintain that. I think in terms of the railings, I don't mind the height of the railings going up. Obviously, it's required, but I do think that a design could be developed that would retain the two-pole rhythm of the 12-inch rails, and even use that top rail, the large top rail, as a design feature at 42 inches to kind of recall and make it special instead of having it to be, Parks Department standard kind of fence. I think it would maintain the original design to the extent feasible with current codes. I think I think the entry ramp is very clever, and I think that I would suggest that they kind of make it a little bit bigger so it's a little less pavement and a little more green. But otherwise, I think that the application is a very strong one, and it'll be greatly appreciated. And the more green, the better. I certainly agree. If there's any way to, I think you could probably move the swings to the axis and have it kind of line up with that axis and kind of play on the symmetry of the space and flip it. You'd have the same clearance and stuff, but that's not as urgent, I think, as the other stuff.
Okay, Commissioner Ginsburg.
Having dealt with a number of these issues, this is a very tricky project to deal with the flooding, handicapped access, and current safety fence code. So I think this is basically a very good solution and I can support it. My one comment, my understanding was there wasn't definitive that the dinosaurs would be put back in some way. And I would strongly urge that the dinosaurs get put back, because if you have a dinosaur playground without dinosaurs, that seems to be a little weird. Because before you told me about the dinosaurs, I was going to ask, why is it named the dinosaur playground? So, but I think this is a good proposal and can support it.
I noticed specifically that it said the dinosaurs were to be salvaged, and I thought it was actually a very amusing concept that we are salvaging dinosaurs today, but it's a good idea. And there also will be new dinosaurs as well that you can walk through, which kids like to do.
I forgot one important thing. I think that two of the folks who gave testimony raised an interesting question, which is, what's our record in getting our comments integrated into the final results of these kind of things? The applicants, the people who testified were saying that we should not provide the report as a way of forcing the Parks Department to come back. I don't know if that's warranted or not, but I think it's certainly worthwhile for us to explore internally on the staff level whether the recommendations that the commission has made over the years or even recently have been taken to heart or not. And, if the system is working, then that's great. If the system isn't working, we should think about.
Yeah, we can take a look at that and have a more accurate representation of how that works. All right, Commissioner Chen.
Yeah, I'm just grateful. Maybe it's coming off the Thanksgiving season to see that there's still budget to make the improvement that's barely needed. That picture of the chronic flooding horrifies me, and so I'm really just grateful that this important park is getting its proper due and attention. I think you bring a lot of joy to a lot of children, a lot of kids, and I do agree with many of the comments about making sure the dinosaur is restored.
All right, thank you. Vice Chair Bland.
I think there's it's a fundamental problem that is pitted again, historic preservationists against playgrounds. And honestly to say, I think the playground issue is really important. And, kids don't play the way they did in 1942. The climate doesn't act the way it did in 1942, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that's not to say we throw out everything and you start all over, unless that's the whole idea. And it's certainly not the idea here. The idea is to play up the bourgeois scheme. But I think it does it well enough. So unlike some of the testimony, which I think was too heavily weighting, at least in my judgment, for me at least, too heavily weighting the preservation issues, I think this is a nice combination kind of the two, where the preservation of the key elements is still there, but yet we acknowledge that kids play a little bit differently than they used to, and the environment is different, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's been a wonderful presentation to look to see how they've kind of steered the middle ground. So I support it as is.
Thank you. Commissioner Lutfi.
Thanks for those comments, Fred, and everybody's actually, but it is true. Kids play differently today. I grew up using city parks and they were really different. But, you know, as concrete as they were, that's what they were. And I played in them and they were really great. And I feel like there's been a lot of thought. This is complicated, especially because of the flooding. And it is unfortunate to know that, but thank you for being honest, that the flooding is, you know, may still continue to be a problem. And I'm sure that it is something that parks will be dealing with and trying to improve at every step along the way. So it seems to me like a lot of these changes I'm no expert, but make sense in terms of, improving accessibility, dealing with resiliency issues, the fence replacement sounds fine. It's understandable that things might need to be moved around. I guess I feel it's okay, and that the essence of what was there is really still here. And so I feel very comfortable with it, also in terms of paving and everything else.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chu.
Yeah, I agree that I think that all of these improvements to public parks are a huge plus for the community. They're greatly used by every area around them. And the problem with a lot of them is that they're not safe and they're not accessible. So I think you're addressing all the real big concerns here with the existing park. The only two items that I would point out that stand out to me because they address the point of accessibility or welcomingness is a little bit the guardrails, because it does feel a bit jailed and the existing design is very low and it feels very open to that lower level as opposed to separating it. I just wonder, and I can see the challenges. I've been trying to think about solution. I can't find one now without seriously altering the section of this or creating a ha-ha or something that's right behind it or in front of it. I don't think that's a good idea. I do wonder whether or not you could lower the guardrail on the low ramp, because I think your delta doesn't require it. It could be a simple handrail for the second run down. As I looked at the elevation, it looked like it was under 30 inches or around 30 inches. So you could potentially only have a curb and a handrail, which would help a little bit with the visual clutter of guardrail. And the other small item is just, I don't mind so much the organic approach to what you did on the inside of the landscape, which I can see you retain the loop of the historic plan. It's just the inside with added green. I think more pervious surface is big plus anywhere in the city. So that's welcome. But I do think, and this is, I think Michael said this earlier, I feel like the plan isn't flowing that well. And that's because the swings on the upside have this fence that intrudes into the space a lot. And I wonder whether or not you could have put them all together and have them on. I think Michael even said this at the end of the access and retain the big diagram of openness and not intrude into it with the fence, which I assume you're putting there because you don't want kids running in front of swings as they're swinging. And that's a big danger point. Other than that, I think it's a great improvement to the park.
Thank you. Commissioner Master.
I agree with a lot of the comments that the commissioners have said. I think they've addressed most of the issues. Again, I applaud the Parks Department for tackling very important issues of accessibility and the flooding. And in my opinion, I think they've done a great job.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Yeah, I thought this is a really great project. Especially great. I thought the plan of the Beaux-Arts plan with the access and all that and softening the edges worked well. But that I thought was great was the section. The way they dealt with the section of the waterworks, the way they dealt with the section at the entrance. So the landscaping, the section part is really quite exciting. And I can't wait to go to see this in plan or something when the section shifts and twists. I think it could be an incredible experience.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Holford Smith?
Yeah, I think I also think they did a really good job of trying to maintain the original layout and feeling while integrating, much stricter requirements around play that are enforced today and dealing with the flooding. And so in general, I'm in support of the application, but I think Stephen's suggestions of looking closely at where grade change hits the 30-inch mark and eliminating the guardrail would help in a big way to reduce that feeling of just, lots of fencing around everything. But in general, I think it's a really good application.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I think where we are now is we have more than 6 to vote for it as is. The advantage of it being an advisory report is we can include some of the additional comments having to do with the railing and some of the Commissioner Goldblum's thoughts as well. But I think for now we can make a motion to approve it, and then the staff can add in any of these additional thoughts about working to continue to study some of these other aspects, including the railing and the railing height and design. And we'll note that there was also a concern about the plan, but so I think we should just make a motion to approve it. I'll say something at the end.
Sarah, it'd also be nice to follow up on what Mike had brought up. We spent a lot of time around listening and presenting, and then if it's not implemented, it's sort of missing a whole lot of people.
So, I mean, with respect to this application, we have more than 6 to vote for it.
No, I didn't mean that.
So,
I'll be following up on
yeah. So, I mean, I think as I was saying, it's sort of unlike with a regular application where we have a binding action, we can actually add these additional comments into this report. We have the flexibility to do that. We can certainly go back and look at some of our other actions. I think that it is not as, it's probably, I think probably there aren't going to be as many conflicts as has been represented in the testimony, but we will go back and take a look at it.
I think that's good.
Okay, so we'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. In the matter of an advisory report, Borough of Manhattan LPC 2403-689 Riverside Park, Dinosaur Playground, Scenic Landmark. Block 1897, Lot 1, a playground and pathways built in the 1930s within an English Romantic style park built in 1873 to 1875 and designed by Frederick Olmsted, with modifications and additions built in 1934 through 1937 and designed by Clifton Lloyd and Gilmore Clark. Application is to remove stairs, install ramps, replace walls, fencing, and guardrails, and regrade this site. I note that that subsequent modifications to the playground were made about 1990, including replacing play equipment and paving. I recommend that a favorable report be issued, finding that the work will help improve barrier-free access, safety, and environmental resiliency without eliminating any significant historic features of the scenic landmark. That the regrading, replacement of stairs, construction of ramps and a wall, and changes to the footprint of the paving and the heights of existing walls within the playground will improve accessibility and expand green space without detracting from the historic symmetry and formality of the design. That the pipe rails to be replaced are not unique or finely crafted, and the replacement with guardrails with modest detailing will be consistent with the playground design. That the proposed perimeter fencing will replace existing modern fencing and feature a typical 4-foot tall height and simple picket design commonly used in fencing within the park. That the removal of the ramp and step ramps and construction of the new stairs will be compatible with the historic circulation pattern within this section of the park. That the proposed switchback ramp will be as short as feasible and partially screened by plantings, helping it to be harmonious within views of the park entrance and surrounding landscape. That the materials and finishes of the proposed hardscape elements will be compatible with historic materials and finished palette of the playground and surrounding playground, and that the proposed work will not detract from the significant historic and naturalistic character of the Riverside Park historic scenic landmark.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
Okay, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Holblum,
No.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 10 in favor and 1 opposed, the motion passes.
All right, so that's, the motion has been approved to issue a favorable report, but as has been mentioned, we will also note that 2 commissioners had suggestions about lowering the height of the railing, and then we also had another commissioner suggest the design of the railing be studied, and that the plan of the playground retain some formality. So those will be incorporated into that. All right, we'll move to the next item.
Right, and then it's the next and last item of the day, public hearing item number 7, LPC 23-12265. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 1495, lot 1, 1020 Fifth Avenue in the Metropolitan Museum Historic District. This is a neo-Italian Renaissance style apartment building designed by Warren and Wetmore, built in 1924 to 25. The application is to construct a rooftop addition.
Okay. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Mick Doyle from Atchison Doyle Partners. I'll be presenting, and I have Andy Liu, an associate from our firm. He'll be with me. It's good to be back in front of you and not on Hollywood Squares, but it's this is I'm a little out of practice, so give me a second to get focused. This is 1020 Fifth Avenue. Next. We'll go through the normal coverage on the site and historic context. The site is opposite the Temple of Gender wing at the Met on the corner of 83rd and 5th. The entrance is on 5th Avenue, on 83rd Street. This zeroes in on the area that we're talking about. It's a modest 200 square foot addition on a north facing secondary facade. And next, the large chimney bank is our friend here because it conceals a stair to the roof that we're planning and baffles part of the addition. This just really zeroes in on the area that we're talking about. Next. Corey described the building. It's a Warren and Wetmore building in 2010. The apartment, just interestingly, is the Samuel Kress apartment. The financier foundation philanthropist, and it never changed hands until the current owner. So it's a really rich place of beautiful antique interiors and fireplaces, etc. And next. These are shots from across the street. The penthouse is entirely set back on all sides except the north, and you can't really see any of that projection. Next. This is interesting. That patchwork I'll get to in a minute has been repairs over the years. That sort of white area and all the way down was work done about 30 or 40 years ago of a chimney replacement. And that the very light colored brick is brick replacement that was what would be the cleaned state of the brick. That was new brick put in there. Next. These are shots from the south. Again, you will not really see anything from the south clearly. Next. This is the penthouse portion of the plan. You can see how it's set back on all the sides. The family room is the intent is to make it more of a studio kind of space. And all the others are sort of very historic spaces on the floor below. It's a double height space with a Venetian ceiling, an Italian mantle. It's really incredible. Next. And what we're talking about is the outdoor blue area is the steps that would be behind the chimney stack that are just not visible from any point. And then the pink area is the 200 square foot addition. I want to point out that 2'2" setback. Do you have a? It's important. When we went back and forth with the staff, they were very helpful. A staff comment was, it would help from the elevation if we push that back. It worked out very well that it created a little Juliet balcony that the owner loved, but also gave us a reason to take it out of the being pushed all the way forward, and you'll see it in a minute. But that was a staff comment that at first I thought was going to bother the owner, but it was well received and went over well. Next. This is the existing roof of the penthouse, and that would be the stair coming up. There'd be a gate from the interior stair and the outside stair. Next. These will have, we'll just show some sections really quickly to orient you. This is looking, this is looking towards Fifth Avenue, and you can see the stair is totally behind the chimney stack. Next. This is looking east, and you can see our attempt is going to be to put like studio-like windows. All the windows on the top floor and in the building are original Hope's windows. We'll be using Hope's replacement windows with true lights, true divided lights, and as thin as we can get them. And they've really improved their weatherproof window condition. Next. And this just is to point out that our intention is to remove that wall to get this large playroom into more of a studio space, take advantage of the higher ceiling. Next. This, we just wanted to point out, under the FISP work that's happening simultaneously, which we hope to do our project during this phase so that we don't have a separate sidewalk bridge or protection on the adjacent sites. We're doing a full restoration of the cornice. It was over the years, it became really dilapidated. There were only like 3 balusters left, and enough though of the original intent to have it recast, and it's going to be done in full terracotta. And the building agreed to do it, and it's in progress now. It's actually very exciting because it's a really horrible condition now, and it's really the crown to this building. Next. This is where I was talking about the facade. Just note the existing north facade as it is now. Next. And the proposed, you can see that setback with the balcony and the new windows and doors where it says that on the right side. That I think it really helps because it's not the same plane as the chimney. And then the other windows, which have larger openings, reflect the windows that go up into the building in the north, the lot line. Next. The typical view, the sight line showing no view. And then this is what we were talking about, what we are very concerned about trying to clean this sort of, because it is exposed as you walk from the north, and we're trying to clean up that, it's sort of botchy up there, and a very technical word. And so we're going to try to clean that brick on the top, recoat that stucco to match the one below, and then there's work being done in this work in the facade on the parapet across. So next slide. I think you can see on your right what's sort of unify that. That's this was a little bit of a push to get the building and the owner to go along with this. And frankly, we're hoping that when the work starts, if it's progressing, maybe we can get some cleaning done right now. Next. This is just to show the typical Hope's window on the right. Those are the original Hope's windows from 1910. The one on the left is a more modern version. Next. These are the details which were submitted. Next. And we're fortunate we found a good building brick match, which is both for the FIS work and for the work on this addition. And that's really where we are. And I'll leave it open to questions at this point.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Goldblum.
What's the color of the lot line windows? What's the color of your lot line windows?
They're gray metal.
And you're going to keep that for your new window?
Yes.
But for the one that's got more mullions, that's going to be black?
That's going to be the same color as the Andy will assist me on that one.
Like that?
Yes.
Yes. So you're going to have a gray window and then a black window next to it. Okay. And also you had in section AA, I just was wondering, what's your roof made out of? It's like 1.5 inches thick. A foot. Well, it was drawn really, really skinny. I was just wondering about that.
Which
there, the roof over the stair. Doesn't look like 1.5 feet.
Oh,
no, over the stair.
Yeah,
it's a bucket. It's basically 3'8" wide.
I know, but what is the roof made of? A material that will withstand a small breeze?
We'll make sure it is. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, so is the difference in the brick color just the result of age and dirt, or
it's age and dirt? And if I'm not mistaken, the rule with landmarks is to put the original, put what the cleaned brick would be back. And that's why the intent is we sort of explored as many as we could on the bricks.
that patched portion is just the newer portion.
The newer portion that goes down was another chimney repair.
Yeah.
There were 3 big.
But it wasn't a different color of brick than the original. It just the age issue and the cleaning issue. Okay, thanks.
That area going up and down used to be a boiler that was removed out of the building.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. I note that there's no one in the room to testify, but I'll turn it over to Gregory and see if there are any remote participants who'd like to testify.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have one hand raised in the meeting, that being Nuha Ansari from the Friends of the Upper East Side. Nuha Ansari, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Chair Carroll, Honourable Commissioners, my name is Nuha Ansari and I'm speaking on behalf of Friends of the Upper East Side.
I'm terribly sorry. We're having technical difficulties right now. We'll reset for 1 moment.
Is that better?
Okay. Yes, it looks like we got it. Thank you for your patience, Nuha.
Thank you. So my name's Nuha Ansari, and I'm speaking on behalf of Friends of the Upper East Side. Friends' Preservation Committee takes no issue with the proposed penthouse addition, since the new massing would be relatively modest in size and would retain a small setback at the terrace, minimizing any disruption to the configuration of the upper portion of the building. We also note that the rooftop addition is on a secondary facade and only minimally visible from Fifth Avenue. Friends does not object to the new steel casement windows or the window and door system at the penthouse terrace, and we are glad to see that the proposed exterior stair and bulkhead would be concealed behind a chimney. We appreciate the proposal to clean the brick and recoat the stucco on the upper portion of the north elevation to make it more uniform. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your testimony. I am looking through the attendees list now, and I do not see any further hands raised. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 8 recommends approval. And I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. All right, so all supportive testimony. Are there any final comments you'd like to make before we move to our discussion?
No, again, I think the Friends were very happy with the setback. That was the first thing they commented on. So
that's great.
Important.
Good. All right, thank you. All right, so we'll move to close the hearing. Commissioner Goldblum, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
And Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second? that motion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right, the hearing's closed and we'll begin our discussion on this small addition and new windows on this undeveloped north elevation of this building on Fifth Avenue. Commissioner Master, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I think that the rooftop addition is very modest, and it's set back. And as somebody said, it's really on a secondary facade, with minimal visibility. And so I think that it's appropriate.
You, Commissioner Chu?
Yes, I agree with Commissioner Master. I think that it's a minimal addition. And the setback makes a big difference. It doesn't confuse the existing building massing. It's appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lutfi?
I agree, it's appropriate.
Land?
Apparently that setback was a big deal. So do I. I think it's appropriate.
Commissioner Chen?
Likewise, yeah.
All right.
Appropriate.
All right.
Great.
Yeah, it's appropriate.
Okay. All agreed? All agreed. Okay, so I think we all are in agreement on this one. Commissioner Master, would you make the motion?
Sure. In the matter of LPC -23-12265, 1020 Fifth Avenue, Metropolitan Museum Historic District, a neo-Italian Renaissance style apartment building. I note that the building's style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Metropolitan Museum Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the modest addition will extend an existing penthouse to fill in open spaces on side terraces, utilizing brick to match the existing side walls, and that the work will be seen against a backdrop of the penthouse and a taller building beyond. That precedent exists for larger windows at penthouse additions on buildings of this age, type, and style in this historic district. That the larger of the two windows will be set back from the side wall behind a terrace, separating it from the fenestration below. And that the work is on a secondary undeveloped facade and will only be visible from the north from Fifth Avenue in conjunction with window openings of different sizes against a masonry wall exhibiting different materials and brick colors. That proposed windows will align with the outer edge of bays of windows below, and their scale will be broken down by vertical and horizontal mullions to relate to the overall fenestration of the side facade, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural or historic character of the building or the Metropolitan Museum Historic District.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chu, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland, Commissioner Chapin. Aye. Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg. Aye. Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 11 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, so that's approved. Thank you very much. And that concludes our day.